Excellent. So tonight we're going to be doing standard 45 and 49. So there's not much to either one. And most of you are already compliant. You're already sufficiently present, as we say. So this shouldn't be too bad, but for some people we're recording, so we're going to go through the full regular PowerPoint slides for this, and we're going to start with standard 45. And so standard 45 is about including frequent and authentic methods for assessing learners' mastery of content. And so we have our first video. I believe this one is very short.
It's important to offer students a variety of assessment strategies, and not just a variety, but a high number of them. Lots of small stakes assessments rather than just a couple of high stakes assessments. Students are very good at modifying their behavior if you give them legitimate and authentic feedback on the mistakes that they've made. It's so important, I think, to provide objective rubrics so that students know in advance of the assignment what's expected of them on what criterion they will be graded. So those two principles, when you can join them, lots of low stakes assessments, each of which has a predefined rubric that students know in advance, I think you're going to find that students will comply with the expectations of the course much better. You should assess everything that you assign. Assignments that are not graded and are not assessed are probably not done. Or at least not done very thoughtfully. So design your course with assessments that are relevant to the material, that are also relevant to the students. Make them think about in a critical fashion, rather than just simply supply objective responses to multiple choice questions. I always think that writing is a very effective way to help students learn. Allowing them to engage in discourse with one another and assessing the quality, not just the quantity of the discourse, which is why, counting discussion posts in a discussion forum isn't a very good assessment. But if you provide feedback on the quality of the post, and if you have some definite criteria in mind of what a quality discussion post is, then students will learn much better. So one of the most effective techniques I have found is to tell students that every discussion post needs to teach something new that has not been taught previously, and that they should introduce each discussion post with a statement of their main point, so that we have an advanced organizer. As we read their discussion post, we know what it is we're reading. It helps us to categorize and learn that content. A lot of work, a lot of assessments means a lot of feedback and a lot of grading. The use of rubrics makes that more efficient. But it's very simple to design a course where you have a midterm and a final and 2 high stakes exams. The teacher doesn't have to do much grading or much feedback, but that's not a very effective way to design a learning activity.
Excellent. So the wording for this one actually just changed. And they just added authentic methods to this. So the video before was, this standard used to be course includes frequent and appropriate methods to assess learners' mastery. So authentic method is a very, very new add in the newest version of OSCQR. A lot of instructors ask me what authentic means. Authentic means that what you're doing is connected to the lives of the students directly, the field that you're talking about, or it's connected to real world experience. So everything that you're doing relates somehow back to the real world, whether it's the student's goals in life, the goal of graduating, the goals of the course, or you are relating it directly to their real life experience. So that's what really authentic means. The other thing he talked about was an advanced organizer. Frequently I'm asked about what an advanced organizer is. An advanced organizer is something that you have students prepare before the class or before they actually do an assessment. So it may be reading an article and then having them summarize or paraphrase from that article, and then bringing that summary to class where they're going to do sort of group work with it. So it means some sort of activity you're having them to do, whether it's online or in the classroom, before they actually start to really do the work around that content. So advanced organizer is an excellent strategy for any kind of class in any modality. If we move to next class. Ooh. So when we look at the actual language for this standard, it's talking about consistent and regular assessments that happen each week to help students be able to assess their own learning. So this is a lot about creating students who are self-regulating their own learning. They're learning to understand how they learn and how they develop and grow as they take courses at school, and how they are challenged by life. So giving them consistent and regular assessments helps them watch their growth over time as they go through the course, and how they become very easy as the course matures through the weeks. In week 15, they don't have the same questions they're asking you in week 5, and it really helps them become empowered. It becomes independent. They're very student centered and focused on their own reflections. And so the other parts of this first part of this standard is really about how they are mastering courses, how they're meeting the program and goals of the modules and the learning outcomes. And so that they're understanding that as they work through the content consistently and regularly, they are starting to see the results of them mastering the course or mastering the content. It's very easy for them to understand. And that's going to be through quizzing, and we're talking about assignment building. And in part 2 of this standard, it talks about using an assessment strategy that is measurable and relates back to the outcome, right? So we're not doing extra assessing. We're not doing assessing that's not mapped directly back to the outcome within the course. What practices are wrapped up into this? So there are several. One is pre-assessments, early and often assessment and feedback, large number of formative assessment for practice, low stakes quizzing, summative assessments, and post assessments. Quite a few of these you are already an expert at, and don't need a lot of information from me. You're already doing well. But the first one, pre-assessment, I have often not seen any pre-assessments in the sort of online courses or in the classroom. Pre-assessments are very, very important to do right at that beginning of that first week. And here's some of the reasons why I recommend pre-assessments. And there could be multiple pre-assessments. Oops, somebody's mic is open. You might want to mute. So let me see if I can see whose mic is open. There we go. I think everybody's muted. There we go. So the first one, of course, is diagnostic. It's really important that you understand what are the outside challenges and barriers to students. And so asking them about jobs, how many hours they're working, what is their schedule, how much family responsibilities they have, what type of time do they have to meet online if you wanted to do a one-on-one with them, or if you were to offer like a midterm review or an exam review, what time would that be good for them? That is really, really an effective way to demonstrate belongingness to them, that you really care about them and who they are. You can also use a pre-assessment to pre-measure content in your subject area. So this is very, very helpful when you're working with a lot of content. You can do a pre and post and really understand the growth of the students over time. The pre-assessment can be inclusive, where you're asking them, what is their nickname? Can you please give me a pronunciation of your last name so that you pronounce it correctly? Pronouns, would they like you, you to use pronouns? And then often I leave a question open that says, what do you want me to know about you? What are the challenges and barriers do you think you have for this course, and how can I help you? So students that are A students that are fine, they're not going to answer that questions, but there are students out there, especially students who have mental health challenges. They will let you know. They'll say, I have test anxiety. I could really use a hand for that. So it really gets you off on the right foot with the students, and you can get them to start student services right away, right? So if you have a student who says, I'm going to need a tutor, I already know, right? I already struggle in this subject. I've had a hard time. Right there and then you can go into Starfish, email the student, and give them the information to contact Joanne and set up appointments with tutors. You can also use pre-assessment for technology and Blackboard, especially if you're using a lot of technology. You can ask them, what kind of experience have you had in Blackboard? Have you taken the student orientation? Do you know how to submit an assignment? So that you understand exactly what their experience level is. And so you can concentrate on helping those students through that pre-assessment, through the school, especially things like getting access to computer labs. You can ask them, do you have a laptop at home? What can I do to help you? You can give them information on the lab. How do you get a laptop from the library? So it really helps them right away with any technology leads. And it helps you identify students that are really not prepared technology-wise to take an online course, and you can direct them back to either a hybrid or, in most cases, back to an in-person class within the first week of the course. So that's really helpful, right? Instead of waiting till week 3 or 4, when they finally, say, I don't have a laptop or a phone, I'm having a hard time doing the homework, right? So you can address that right in week 1. And lastly, you can also do a pre-assessment for prior learning. So this is great for anyone who is like part 2 of a sequence of courses. You can, especially in math, especially chemistry, biology, that kind of area, where you're testing previously levels of math to make sure the student is ready to do that work. It allows you to assign additional work to students right away. So especially in the case of math, if there are students who are struggling, you could then immediately give them access to the Tutor Me, or even Khan Academy, right? So Khan Academy has extensive pre-work for most courses, and you can, it's totally free, and you can offer students access to prior work to really help them catch up. All of these things do, all of these strategies, is helps you be aware of the student's current level of needs and whether they are prepared to start the work in week 2. So early and often assessment and feedback is a strategy that we have in Caring Campus. Yay, plug out for Caring Campus in winter. There's another one coming up right after Martin Luther King Day, I believe. There is going to be another Caring Campus, and I'm sure there's going to be another one later in the spring semester. I cannot recommend this enough to sign up for them. Early and often assessment and feedback is an excellent strategy. And what that strategy does is that if you offer assessments early and often in the semester, you increase the students' self-confidence and student sense of belonging and accomplishment in the course, which impacts retention in the course. So this is an effective strategy. We've seen a lot of evidence around this strategy, and it is inclusive. It impacts historically minoritized populations and first-generation students, as well as students who are disabled. They are impacted greatly by this. So early and often, that has you make sure that you are assessing every week at least once. And most often what we're doing is either there's homework every single week, or you are assessing a quiz every week. that you're giving detailed feedback on growth every week, specifically about growth, right? So it's not, you don't have to give information in detail about the work that they're doing, but specifically you're tagging them early. I want you go to the tutoring. I see that you're having some grammar and it's going to impact you later on. I see that you're struggling in math. I want you to go to tutor or tutor me and get some more math help, right? So you're giving them feedback specifically on their growth and their needs each week. At least one summative assessment by week 5. So this means before midterm exam, they've already had a summative assessment. Most often you'll see it as a chapter exam or like an exam for chapters 1, 2, and 3, right? So they've had that in there, or it might be sort of chapter summary exam for the first quarter. It's really important they research for early alert programs have shown that midterm is too late for students who are performing poorly, that by week 5, they need to have an intervention with you in order to improve to a point where they are really turning their grades around. Also, they should have a course grade by the week. So that's a letter grade for the week 5, right? So they should get an A, a B, C, and they should know right away what is their current letter grade in the course. And then also a detailed progress report to the student before midterm. And what this is usually those check-ins. We talked about check-ins a couple of times for the last couple of standards, where you're checking in with students personally online, meeting with them in Collaborate or Zoom, or at office hours, or at other times that you can schedule with them, or just through Starfish, where you're giving them a report of their condition. Often what happens is when students go to advisors, they actually had no idea that they were performing so poorly. And so the detailed progress reports, you clearly state what their letter grade is, and then every point that they need to do in order to turn their grade around. And that can be sent in Starfish to their advisor as well as to the students. And this is all sort of early alert evidence and intervention research that we have for this one, as well as the belongingness and the confidence building for this practice. And here we have it again. So this is what directly comes from the evidence from the research, which is students are better track growth and progress. Students have better grade awareness. Students have more chances to improve from feedback. Students gain a sense of community and belonging, and students' test anxiety decreases because as they go along, they see how they're doing and they can see how they're progressing, right? It's really difficult for them to see when they're only doing midterm or chapter exams. They don't see that progress of this B minus becoming B, becoming B plus, becoming A minus. That's what they really need to see in order to persist. Formative assessments, everybody is very well aware of. I'll just briefly review. Formative assessments are concentrated on hands-on practice of what they're going to be tested on mastery. So they are practicing what you are going to summatively test them on, or during assignments. This is they're writing drafts, they're writing outlines, they're writing their bibliographies, right? We want to make sure there are drafts before they actually give you a final paper, right? We want to see those drafts. Discussions also are another way where you're having critical thinking skills, preparing them for essay questions or those assignments, those final papers, and you're helping students grow in a way that is critical from the lecture and from the reading. It's also a great place for them to practice their citations before they have to do it in their final papers. And then, of course, quizzing. We have so much evidence coming out about using quizzing as a study skill strategy and not an assessment strategy, right? So you give them a quiz every week. The quiz is open, it stays open, and it's unlimited. there's only worth a few points. They can take it as many times as they want. You will see them take it a couple of times at first, then nothing. And then right before the exams, they will take those tests again and again and again. What they know and is called spaced repetition. It is a neurological study process of the neurons, is that they introduce the material to them, you test them on it, and then having these quizzes and having them go back through these quizzes as a study skill, they are they're reviewing the material over and over with a little bit of space, and that actually triggers certain processes neurocognitively, which helps them understand and retain for a longer period of time. So low stakes quizzing as part of early and often, and that's what I was just talking about, is where you're adding checks for understanding for each week, especially for reading compliance, that they will not do the reading unless you test them on it. Quizzes as pre-work for more complicated tasks like a lab. So you're having them do, basically the quiz is actually functions as an advanced organizer, where the quiz needs to be completed before they're allowed to do the lab. You're adding quizzes as part of study skills for exams. Quizzing should be worth a few points, so it's very low risk to them. And it's a really nice way for them to get those 100% scores and give their grade a little boost, right? It's not going to hugely impact their grade, but it does give them a boost, right? Because what we're talking about, the importance of them taking it over and over again until they have 100%. Quizzing should be unlimited to reuse. We talk about that spaced repetition, and make sure you automate it so that you're not adding to your grading workload, right? So it's multiple choices, missing words, completion, matching, those types of questions. So the burden is not on you. Summative assessments, we all know these are very easy. They're aligned directly with your top outcomes. Every one of your summative assessments, so this is your final grades, should directly relate to each outcome that you have. So you should be able to map that directly. I gave you the course assessment map last time. It's up on the website, so you can actually map out and make sure that your summative assessments are aligned with your outcomes. They're very few in the course, right? So summative assessments are like midterm and final exams. They may be midterm and final papers. It may be a large lab report, a project, a presentation. So those are your summative assessments. Feedback is not usually about growth, right? You're not talking about growth because you're done. You're done with the content, right? They have been tested, they have mastered it, or they have not, and you're moving on. So a lot of it their feedback is about recommendations for the future, right? If you go on to the next course, you're going to need to study for this again, because the information is critical for the next course in the sequence, right? So if you need to get this algebra down in order to go on to algebra 2, you're going to have to struggle in that class. So make sure that you do that. Right? And summative assessment often focuses on open book testing, which focuses on critical thinking. So you're really giving them scenarios in the open book testing where you're giving them situations where they need to know multiple pieces of information, concepts, and context in order to be able to answer that assessment, right? Usually it's not about grammar and not about glossaries or very low understand or remember work. And I'm going to also really be a champion for post-assessment as well. Everything I do, I measure pre and posts. Post assessments directly tied to the pre-assessment will give you an exact measurement of what students have retained. This is fantastic for when you are analyzing course information as a program overall for NETCHI. You can refer to these post assessments for direct evidence of the increase of learning over time. It also can be helpful measure learning for final projects and papers. So if you're not giving students a final exam You're giving them a final project and paper, which is fantastic because it's a lot of critical thinking and a lot of creative work there that they have to do. You can also think about giving them a post-assessment, just so you know, you can go back through the glossary and you can sort of go have a little sort of check to make sure that they really got each one of these concepts and content in each chapter and unit. Also, post-assessment provides you an opportunity for students to evaluate your course overall. So you have an opportunity beyond the SRI to ask the students directly, what assignments worked with you, what didn't work for you, how was the timing on the final assessment? Do you think they needed to be more on, project 3, right? This is a chance for you to really ask them their opinions in detail about, how the course itself runs. So I really champion this. It's part of OSCQR, as you'll see next semester, and one of the standards there, that you are post-assessing the design of the course and getting students' opinions on that. So here's the resources that are available here. So that it goes into detail on some of these things about fostering equitable classrooms, talking about how to measure goals effectively and working with those outcomes for assessments. Is there any questions back about these practices? Most of you are real champions in this already. But does anybody have a question? Excellent. So we can move forward. And this is our second. So this is standard 49 that we're going to do. And this one is also, most of you have mastered it in the online courses, which is learners have easy access to a well-designed and updated gradebook. And this video is a little longer, but it does roam a bit. So I'm going to play that, let you hear that. There's some good comments from the instructors for this one.
We usually recommend that faculty build their grade center right from the start of the semester, that their course should be fully ready before they start, and their grade center should also be fully ready before the start of the semester. The reason we do this is because on the menu, you need to have a link toward the grade book. In our system, Blackboard, it's called My Grades usually. You can call it whatever you want, and you can change the name of it, but the tool itself is called My Grades. And we recommend that our instructors put a My Grades link so students can use that information as a project management tool over the course of the semester. It's also a feedback tool and a communication tool. So as a project management tool, you can set it up so that your students can see things in the order they're due, or you can set it up so that students see things according to what they are. All the assignments are in one place, all the discussions are in one place, all the tests are in one place. They can also use it as a communication space where you're giving them the feedback. So they can see what their grades are. You can put in your narrative comments. They can see those comments. If they have a question, they can get back to you about them. They can also access their assignment and check into, a question they might have. It's an important resource for the students to be successful within your course. So if you plan it from the beginning and you plan it with intent, it will help your students to be successful within your course.
Some students will think they're not doing well. They make a lot of assumptions. So they think they're not doing well, and they could very easily withdraw from the class because they don't understand how the gradebook works, or they don't know how to access their grades. Or another student might think that they're doing very, very well because they haven't paid attention to criteria. The criteria isn't clear for them. So they might not make a change in their behavior that they need to make if they really knew where their grade was. So I have a link to My Grades now, right from the start of the menu. So students can go in at any point in time, and I update it constantly. I took a couple online classes last semester, and one professor didn't update our grades at all for maybe 6 weeks. I had no idea what my grade in the course was. I mean, I assumed it was a good grade. But the other one was up within 48 hours. I'd submit an assignment within 48 hours. I had feedback, I had a grade, and I just as from the student end, that made me feel so much more comfortable, even knowing I was a good student and I was getting an A in the class. And so I think it's super important that students have all the information available to them before they make important decisions about whether to stay in a class or how much time to spend on their next assignment. I think students don't always understand how percentages are set up. And so, you might have a bunch of informal assessments that are worth a very small percentage of their overall grade, and their, a midterm exam is worth 25%. And so if they don't have somewhere very clearly laid out for them how those percentages work in terms of their overall grade, and they're just paying attention to those mini grades as they come in, they could have a very skewed sense of how they're doing in the class.
Another pitfall that often occurs if we don't plan our grade centers out from the start is that students will get information when they click on that link, their My Grades link. When they click on the My Grades link, they'll get information that is inaccurate or confusing. So sometimes what students will see is multiple total columns, and they don't know what it means, and the numbers in there don't make sense to them. Or there'll be assignments from a previous semester, but you're not using them this semester, but they're still showing up, and things like that. And you'll get a lot of questions. Students will be confused. Their experience of the course will be distracted. It'll be shifted toward resolving these small, minor logistics problems instead of focusing their energy on wrestling with the content and doing a good job. So as instructors, we want to plan that area from the start so that we make sure it has everything the students need and nothing that they don't.
So there was some good comments there. I am just as liable as adding a couple of total columns, forgetting to hide one of those columns in the grade book. So I think the, grade book awareness is always, sort of top of mind. There's in Blackboard, we don't see the grade center like the students do, right? They have a different view. So I think a lot of times we forget, how do the students see those grades? What does it look like? And there's a lot of tips around, Blackboard, which Mary Adele has, Jean and myself, we have, some really great tips about Blackboard and how to develop that grade book if you're having problems with that. So part one of the policy, the standard here, really talks about the feedback and guidance really helps students to stay on track. And that's the same we saw from standard 45, standard 44 is the same thing, is that as students see grades quickly and often, they are empowered, that confidence grows, their feeling of belonging to the class, of doing well, of being able to complete the class with a good grade, that continues to build over and over. So it's really important that they see all of the grades in the grade book as soon as they're available, but also we need to balance their expectations. A lot of people are teaching a lot of classes, so it takes time, right? And we need to manage even, I am just as behind as everybody else is on grading. I'm more than a week behind on a late for grading an assignment, right? So really it's managing the expectations of the students in the course so they understand that you are behind. We saw that back in standard 11 and 12, where we were talking about setting expectations. We saw it in standard 38 and 37 and 36, where you are managing expectations, you're managing late policies, and you're managing your turnaround time, right? Again, so it really feeds all back into the standards that we've talked about before. And again, it's right, they're checking that progress continually. You're not hiding grades from them. They can see it throughout the course. They can see how they build. And they're also benefit from seeing the grade of activities that are coming up. I remember when I was a student too, that I'd always be checking in my grades to see what was coming up next. Like, ooh, what's coming up next? What are we doing next? Right. So it's a real draw and kept me going in the course and getting excited that there was only 3 things less listed, still with a dash in my grades. Right. So it kept me going, ooh, we only have 3 things left. It's very exciting. Right. So it gives you a push to the end. What are the practices around this? So the majority of people have really mastered a lot of the grade book. There's always a lot of advanced features, but I think people have really got a good handle on this. You want to have your grade book in chronological order, so as they can see the grades filling in week by week, and then they can see those grades that, those things that are coming up in the My Grades. All the grades in My Grades, where appropriate, they should have the rubric attached. It's you don't want to put those rubrics somewhere else in the course. You really want to have them in the rubric. I know the Blackboard rubric tool is terrible. I'm totally with you with that, but it's really critical that we have these associated for students. If it's right there for them, they click on it so they can see those rubrics. Remember, we talked about this in standard 11 and 12, scaffold your checking grades and checking feedback. Only 8% of students, actually it was up to 11 last time I looked. 11% of students know how to check their feedback in a course for assignments. So all that feedback that you're giving them, they're not looking at. So you want to make sure that you onboard them in the very beginning of the course. So after you give back grades and you're in the announcements and you're saying, hey, the grades are in for the first assignment, go check your grades. You want to give them that how to check a grade video, how to check your feedback video, so that they can onboard that. Integrate your publisher platforms. So OSCQR is really clear that all the grades should be in the LMS, whatever the LMS is, whether it's Canvas or Blackboard or Brightspace. So you want to make sure that you're using the platform Content Market, or you're using the Barnes & Noble AI sort of first day access integrations in Blackboard to get your columns, all your homework columns and your assignments from the platform into the Blackboard Grade Center so they can see those all in one place. And then journaling as part of grade feedback. So I know that you're very good at all of these, but I'd like to talk about journaling. Journaling is underused as a strategy for grading in courses. So journaling, there's a journal tool in Blackboard called Journal. No surprise there. The surprise is that it's a 2-way communication with students. So often you are trying to email students back and forth. All that can happen in a journal. So students can post back and forth with you. You can answer questions back and forth. It can be a diagnostic. So if you have students that don't understand anything, they can ask you right in the journal, right? And then you can reply to them because it's 2-way conversation. You can understand the context in which the student is operating. So again, you remember that pre-assessment? You can start the journaling off by having them in the first week do that pre-assessment right in the journal. So you can have them answer guided questions about who they are, how much they're working, to get a real sense of who they are. Journals can be very personal. It's a really great intimate conversation between you and the students. It is totally private. Nobody can see what you're talking about, so the student can feel safe. It's also very inclusive. It's a really great way to give kudos to students. I know you can give kudos through Starfish, but giving a little bit of a detailed kudo to a student on the last assignment is a great way to do that in a journal. You can also give students extensive feedback over time. So this is great for writing portfolios, talking to students about their performance over time. It's also great for art, music, and performance, right? So anywhere that you're telling students over a period of time. It's great for nursing, for rehab, any kind of psychomotor skills that you're teaching, where you're talking to the student over time, how they're progressing and giving them feedback overall. So there's a lot of times we want to talk to students, overall how they're doing, and the journal provides you a great way of doing that. And then again, we've talked before in some of these some of the standards before, we talked about check-ins, we talked about Zooming one-on-one, having these general synchronous sessions with them. You could also do it through the journal. You can provide feedback and check-ins at the same time, so that you don't have to create these sort of these 20, 30, 40, 80 appointments to meet one-on-one with all your students. Use this journal as a tool for you, and they don't need to be graded, right? So this is a journaling tool. You can give the students a couple of points for doing a couple of these journals as you're onboarding. It's another way to give them a boost. It's another way to make sure that you could do a writing assessment at the first week. If you're in English Comp 1010, you can do your 1-page paper writing assessment right into the journal. For that, they can just like anything else, they can upload PDFs, they can upload docs, they can go through, and the journal can make grade columns for you. So think about how the journal can be used as this feedback conversation between the two of you to reduce it in other areas, right? This is not to add to you. This is to reduce the amount of emails you're going back and forth. It's to make sure that students understand your feedback. It's a way to say, hey, did you see your feedback for assignment number 3? I have recommended tutoring. Here's that information again. Right. So it's a way for you to sort of keep them connected to you throughout the course. And here are some resources for this. There's a great little, actually it's not a little, it's a quite long article for how this impacts, how the Grade Center and how you use the Grade Center impacts student success in the course. So it was a really great little piece of reading there. And then I also put in the Check My Grades in Blackboard video for everybody. So if you don't have it in your course, you could just quick link it there from this. And I'll also put it up on the website as well. So you'll be able to put it directly right into your course in your first announcement to them, like grades are up, go ahead, check your grades. And then you put this video right in there for that announcement.